TANGZU Zetian, the legend. Let's talk about it. This is a double planar that I bought for myself with my own money because I thought it was an interesting IEM. This is a $260 IEM, and now that we've gotten through that little intro, let's start by talking about the build quality of this lovely IEM. Now, the shells of this IEM are really nice. They're a little bit wide for my taking, but it has nice contours and fits in my ear really quite well. It has kind of a ribbed metallic edge for the nozzle, and so it fits ear tips really quite nicely. Its faceplate, you're going to see it real quick right here, is absolutely gorgeous. It's almost like a sunset behind kind of a metal plane. It's vented, and it is a flat 2-pin cable connector. This is a world-class shell. This is a very, very nice shell, and it is extremely comfortable, and I like it a great deal. I don't know if everybody gets a statue, but I got a statue. There we go. All right, here are the tips. We get 2 pairs of wide bore and 1 pair of narrow bore tips. Let's take a look and see where they kind of lie in the case. It's kind of interesting. Here they are in the case. It's a nice unboxing experience. You can see them right there. All right, now the case. Now they do have a nice case that is kind of like a flat leather. This is almost like an alligator leather. It's like a textured leather with a really nice feeling zipper. I like this case a lot. When you open it up, you kind of have this area where you can put ear tips or maybe like, I don't know, maybe a small dongle deck and kind of put the IEM here in this case. It's a nice case. I like it. You can remove this, which is great, and you can look in here. You have a nice little pouch on the left, and it feels nice. It feels like a good case in hand. Extremely premium, extremely nice at this price. The cable has nice right and left connectors you can see, really quite visible and easy to find. The cable is exceptional. It's done by Flash Acoustics, which typically does a lot of expensive cables. A lot of us were talking about this and they thought it would be more expensive. The cable slider is nice and stays in place. We have a branded Y split you can see. Let's turn that upside down. There we go. The cable itself feels great in hand. It has kind of a faint purple and matches the faceplate. You know, it just looks nice. It feels nice. It's a 2-wire. There we have it in focus here, and it looks and feels good. We also have a 4.4 connector, and yeah, it's also branded. And it looks good, it feels good in hand, and it is a remarkable cable for this price. Okay, let's get into who this is for. This is, and kind of talk about the sound of this. This is not for bass heads. This is for people that like an energetic presentation. Like if a normal planar isn't energetic enough, this might be for you. I do like a lot of treble and an extension, and I think it's kind of fun. I am older, maybe I'm losing my hearing a little bit, but I do like IEMs that have this level of extension, but there's certain aspects about this IEM that I don't like. I do like this IEM, and I think it's a nice IEM, but it has some faults. All right, let's talk about the graph of this guy. Now, this is a nice looking graph. You know, it's pretty decent channel matching for a planar, all things considering. Again, this is not a this is a personal unit. This is not something that I was sent out to me, so take that for what you will. This is just a fan review, so the channel matching, it's okay, and oftentimes in planars it's a little bit off. You'll notice there's a nice amount of bass, a little bit of a peak here right around 1K, which it's really not bad, but you'll notice quite a bit of energy around 5 to 6K, and a huge spike, like a ton of energy right around this kind of 10-ish K peak, which is not bad, but I think kind of the combination of these 3 little peaks makes it quite a bit too peaky. I think there's other sets where I've noticed that I like more than this that I think don't do that, and oftentimes this sounds bright. I usually also don't talk about sources, but I want to talk sources on a little bit. I have a DC Elite, and this does sound better on some kind of darker, more sophisticated sources, and on some sources it doesn't sound that great. Either way, it does have brightness and it's a little bit finicky. I'm going to try to explain that looking at some graphs and looking at some comparisons. I do want to compare this to a few others. The TANGZU NV, I think it's a nice set. It's kind of bland. Has a little bit more upper mids here, a little bit less spiky treble, a little bit better of a bass shelf. At least this is how mine measured, and I do like the ZEITN the Legend better. I think this is a really good set, but I don't think it's going to be for everybody. I think maybe one of their cheaper sets might be better. This is this is for people that can handle a ton of treble, and it's a little bit of a concern. And I wanted to show you a few others. This is the one U1G. It's kind of their new budget model. You'll notice a lot of similarities, all the way going up to about 3K. I didn't really like that set either, but it's also it's a budget $50 set, something kind of to note. But I just kind of wanted to compare some of the other ones in this from the brand that I have graphed. The TANGZU Baji, and this is more expensive, and I do prefer the Baji. I think the Baji is a nice set. But the Baji is a little bit bassier and has kind of a duller approach. I think the treble on the ZEITN the Legend, when it hits, is very nice and very well done. And it could be a great contrasting set to the Baji. And I think the micro details on the ZEITN are a little bit better and more kind of detaily and sparkly, and it's kind of a beautiful thing and a beautiful presentation, but there's concerns that it might not be for everyone. One thing I wanted to look at, this kind of reminds me a lot of the Supernova, but when the Supernova kind of has this mid-treble kind of region that I'm kind of not a huge fan of, it also kind of you'll notice a lot more peaks here around, that the 8K peak's a little higher. There's almost like an 11 or 12K peak here. There's a ton of energy up here, and it's a lot like that kind of even kiltered Supernova. But I feel like the Supernova, because it has less of this treble, it's almost like a teeter-totter, like a seesaw. It feels exaggerated and raised, but there's a lot of similarities between this and the Supernova, and they both have really good timbre. Another one to think about is the Limier's Terra, and the Terra does have quite a bit of treble, but it doesn't have this spike here, but it has the 8K spike, but it does have a little bit more bass. And I feel like even though the Terra is really kind of bright and sparkly, I think the extra bass and kind of a little bit more tame upper air kind of helps balance the Terra and makes the Terra a little bit more palatable for me. I think both IAMs are going to be a little bit off for people, but I just, again, this much region, this much air can be kind of off-putting for people and can kind of make things sound just kind of off and a little bit too less grounded and a little bit strange, peculiar. But again, when it does hit, it's very nice, and it's kind of a fun effect. It's kind of like finding your distortion of sound, and it's a fun distortion of sound if that's something that might be appealing to you. Another one to look at, this upper air treble region reminds me a lot like this, from about 2K to about 20K. It reminds me a ton of the Canera Celeste Relentless. Now, I think the ZEITN the Legend's a little bit more refined for a couple of reasons, but I do think there's some similarities with kind of having this crazy upper air region that feels a little bit cranked up, and I kind of wanted to point that out. I wanted to compare this to a few other planars and just show some similarities, like the Let's Shure S12. Again, I think there's an awesome kind of refinement in the ZEITN the Legend, but it's not really that great. It does have a lot of peaks and a lot of spikes that becomes a little bit troublesome. The S12, I kind of liked it. It's kind of fun. I thought it was pretty good. I think the TANGZU ZEITN appeals to me kind of as a treble-focused listener and someone who likes a bit of treble, but again, sometimes it's a little bit much and it's a little bit off-putting, and I wanted to be really clear about it, that I think a lot of people are not going to like this in that much. Something like the Let's Shure S12, 2024 edition might be better, and it has a similar kind of curve with even maybe a little bit more bass to kind of balance this out, like other sets like the Terra I was talking about earlier. Another set that has kind of like the same bass and it's just a little bit more even keel. There's like the Let's Shure S012. It doesn't quite have the extension and like the amount of detail and kind of technicalities that people might call. And I think some of that might be attributed to this air region, but the Let's Shure S1208 is also a lot cheaper, and it could be a really good fit for people. So it's kind of something to note if you're looking for a planar, that this region is a lot less dialed down, and I feel like the bass is just about the same, maybe a little bit better on that. I wanted to show you the Annihilator. The Annihilator kind of also has this 10K peak right here, but even the Annihilator, even a lot of people call the Annihilator bright. Like if you've ever listened to the 2023 Annihilator and you're like, wow, that's bright, this set is definitely not for you. Look how much more brightness in the mid treble region. Let's come on, brightness in this upper air region, and it doesn't have the balance of that extra bass shelf. And so it has kind of that sort of an effect, which for an IEM, you know, in this 260 price range is kind of cool. Another IEM that, you know, I wanted to kind of show this to is like the Moonrover. And again, the Moonrover is actually a little bit more, you know, lower mid-range, kind of bassy, a little bit less of that extra, you know, mid-treble region, and I think that helps balance it out and ground it a little bit. I feel like you'll notice some similar kind of a drivers, like maybe they used a similar driver, some similar technical specs when they made these two together, but I think the second driver you're seeing here in the Legend kind of has that extra effect. And I think that's kind of something to note with the Legend. It has another driver, which I think kind of helps add that extra peak. And you'll see that kind of in like, you know, the Performer 7. Like if we pull that up real quick, you know, the Performer 7 kind of has that extra peak right around this K. And you know, if we want to compare this real quick to the Performer 7, because they're at a really, really reasonable price, like they're both right around that 240 to 260 range, which, you know, depending on sales, used or whatever, that's basically the same price in this hobby, right? And you'll notice there are a lot of similarities, but again, the P7 feels a lot bassier, a lot less spiked. It feels a lot more smooth in hand. And like the Performer 7's not a super bassy set, but it feels bassier and it feels a little bit more grounded with a little bit less of this 5 to 6K region and a few other things. Like it's almost like this entire region is just kind of dialed back a bit, and I think that works better. Sometimes I'll talk about EQ. I wanted to talk about EQ with the TANGZU, the Legend. I've heard some people say not to EQ air, and I don't really believe in that. I feel like you can still try to EQ, but I don't really feel you should EQ this set. I feel like if you are a treble head, you should think about it because it is kind of cool. Like if you want to have a planar with a little bit better extension, I think this could be a really cool set. But you might want a bass shelf or mess around with a bass shelf or somehow finding a way to add a bass shelf to it. And if you are a bass head, this is something you need to not just stay away from, but run from. And you're not really going to like this, in my opinion, because of that tilted approach with that upper air just being a little bit raised, and what I think is a little bit creative way, which some people might like and some people don't. And for me, I'm kind of on the fence on it, where sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. But, you know, that's kind of how I feel. All right, let's rank this guy up. I'm giving this guy an A, like an A-. It's like, you know, it's a special set, but it has some faults and some flaws. I think you could get some better value sets that might do different things for you. Like overall, I'm giving it a 7 for bass. Like it's not undynamic, but it does feel neutered and a little bit off, almost like a hexa. Like there's like a brightness to it that just pulls it in a weird direction and doesn't feel great. Its mids are okay, they're a little bit planar like, and that's fine. Its highs and upper air I think are really cool. Now they're not going to be for everybody, it's not a fully balanced sound, but they are nice and well done. It images very well and it feels very pristine with good micro details, but its note weight, its bass, its slam feels off. It feels like a $50 set, if at best. It doesn't feel like a $260 set, and it is not worth the price for a bass head. There's lots of issues with it, and that's, you know, kind of part of my fault. But it does have a very open, wide, natural sounding soundstage to it, and I like it. It is also very well packaged. Look at that set. That is a beautiful IEM, and it is very well packaged. Great cable, great case, great shell. Packaging wise, I think this is $1,000 IEM, and I think it's very unique and special in the market in many ways. But for me, it gets an extremely hesitant recommendation, saying that it is for treble heads, for people that like upper air and extension and want to see what technicalities are. I think if you want to talk technicalities outside of just slam, that this is a very well done set and it is a fun set. But its uniqueness doesn't really work for me as a daily driver set. But if I owned it, I could see myself wanting to listen to it, and I think it is a good set. Thanks for watching my video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye. You're still here. It's over. Go home. Oh, you're expecting a teaser for our next video. Well, we don't have that kind of money. What are you expecting? One of those store reviewers to show up in a saucy little leather number? Go. Oh, I can tell you one thing. We are going to have a collab video. We have no idea what it's going to be. Probably Kryn, maybe Chris, or Joyce. Don't deny it. She's got range. Go. Get out of here. Go.
Go!
Go.
Go on with you!